Welcome.
Let's start the book. How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. Introduction: Mastering Genuine Human Connection Online. We live in an era of unprecedented hyperconnectivity, yet genuine human connection has never felt so fragile and rare. How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age brilliantly reimagines Dale Carnegie's timeless principles for our modern world of smartphones, social media, and remote work. At its core, this wonderful book proves that while our mediums of communication have changed drastically, fundamental human nature remains exactly the same. People still deeply crave appreciation, respect, and a sense of importance behind every screen. By mastering these updated strategies, you will learn how to cut through the digital noise and build profound trust. You will discover how to lead effectively, communicate with warmth, and stand out in a crowded inbox. Ultimately, this guide is your key to transforming cold, digital interactions into lasting, meaningful relationships. Point 1. Why does human nature outlast our evolving technology? Technology evolves at a truly breakneck speed, reshaping the landscape of our daily lives almost overnight, yet the human heart continues to beat to an ancient, unchanging rhythm. If we take a step back and examine the profound shift in how we communicate, it is easy to become overwhelmed by the sheer volume of platforms, applications, and devices demanding our attention. When Dale Carnegie first penned his original masterpiece in the 1930s, the world was a vastly different place. People communicated primarily through physical letters, face-to-face meetings, and the occasional telephone call. The pace of life allowed for a certain level of deliberate thought in how we interacted. Today, we exist in a relentless stream of instant messaging, video conferences, social media scrolling, and endless email chains. It is entirely reasonable to ask whether advice written nearly a century ago holds any relevance in a world governed by algorithms and artificial intelligence. The brilliant insight of this book is its resounding confirmation that the core desires of human beings have not shifted one single inch. To understand why these principles endure, we must first look at the paradox of our modern connectivity. We have never had more tools at our disposal to reach out and touch someone's life, yet study after study reveals an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. We are constantly communicating, but we are rarely connecting. This happens because we frequently mistake the efficiency of our technology for the effectiveness of our interactions. It is incredibly easy to send a quick text message or drop a generic comment on a professional networking site, but these frictionless actions often lack the warmth and depth required to nurture a real relationship. We have allowed the screen to become a barrier rather than a bridge. The digital age has essentially handed us a massive megaphone, but it has not taught us what to say or how to listen. Consider the fundamental desires that drive every human action. We all possess an innate, unyielding craving to feel important, to be understood, and to be appreciated for who we are. A smartphone cannot fulfill this need, only another human being can. When you send an email to a colleague, you are not just transmitting data to a server, you are speaking to a person with their own anxieties, ambitions, and daily struggles. The moment we forget the humanity of the person on the other side of the screen is the moment our influence begins to erode. This is why Carnegie's foundational principle, taking a genuine interest in other people, is actually more powerful today than it was in the past. In an environment where everyone is distracted and self-promotional, offering your undivided attention and authentic care makes you stand out like a lighthouse in a storm. The digital world often strips away the vital nonverbal cues that we rely on to convey empathy. We lose the reassuring tone of voice, the warm smile, and the subtle body language that softens our words. Without these cues, our written communications can easily be misinterpreted as cold, demanding, or indifferent. A brief, hastily typed message that was meant to be efficient can land in someone's inbox feeling like a harsh reprimand. Therefore, navigating the digital age requires us to over-communicate our humanity. We have to work harder to inject warmth, courtesy, and respect into our digital footprint. We must consciously choose to be kind in spaces where anonymity often tempts people to be cruel or dismissive. Furthermore, the permanence of the digital world magnifies the impact of our behavior. A thoughtless remark made in passing during a physical meeting might be forgotten by the next day, but a harsh email or an aggressive public comment leaves a lasting, searchable record. This digital paper trail means that our reputation is constantly being built or dismantled by every single keystroke. It forces us to take absolute responsibility for how we present ourselves and how we treat others online. The principles of not criticizing, condemning, or complaining are no longer just good manners. They are essential survival skills for maintaining a positive, personal, and professional brand in a hyper-connected society. As we embark on this journey to adapt these timeless laws of human interaction for the digital era, the most crucial shift is one of mindset. We must stop viewing our devices merely as tools for broadcasting our own agendas and start viewing them as portals for profound human engagement. Whether you are leading a remote team across different time zones, trying to build an online community, or simply wishing to deepen your relationships with distant friends and family, the formula remains the same. You must look past the pixels and the profile pictures and speak directly to the human heart. By committing to this empathetic approach, you unlock a level of influence and respect that no algorithm could ever artificially generate. You become a person who doesn't just navigate the digital world, but beautifully humanizes it. Point 2. Crafting a digital first impression that demands attention. Before you even have the opportunity to type a single word or unmute your microphone in a virtual meeting, your digital footprint has already introduced you to the world. First impressions have always been a cornerstone of human social dynamics, but the nature of these introductions has fundamentally changed. In the past, a firm handshake, steady eye contact, and a warm smile were the gold standard for starting a relationship on the right foot. Today, your introduction often happens asynchronously. People are forming judgments about your competence, your character, and your warmth based entirely on your email signature, your social media bios, your profile pictures, and the tone of your initial written outreach. In this fragmented, fast-paced digital ecosystem, crafting an impression that is both professional and deeply human is a delicate art that requires immense intentionality. Let us explore the concept of the modern smile. Dale Carnegie famously emphasized the power of a smile to disarm defenses and build immediate rapport. But how exactly do you project a smile through a cold fiber optic cable? The answer lies in the tone and phrasing of your written words, as well as the visual elements you choose to represent yourself. A digital smile is conveyed through genuine warmth in your greetings. Instead of opening an email with a rigid transactional "to whom it may concern" or a blunt dive directly into a request, a digital smile looks like starting with, "I hope your week is off to a wonderful start," or "It was so great to see your recent update about." It is the conscious choice to employ words that carry a positive emotional resonance. Even the thoughtful, sparing use of an exclamation point can lift the energy of a sentence, transforming it from a cold directive into an enthusiastic collaboration. Furthermore, your profile picture serves as your perpetual face to the digital world. It is astonishing how many people neglect this vital piece of online real estate. An image where you look approachable, relaxed, and genuinely happy does the heavy lifting of establishing trust before an interaction even begins. When someone receives an email or a connection request from you, their eyes naturally dart to that tiny circular image. If they see a warm, smiling human being, their psychological defenses automatically lower. They are no longer dealing with an anonymous entity, they are dealing with a person. This is the essence of leaving a digital trail that invites connection rather than creating friction. Another critical component of an unforgettable digital first impression is the profound respect for a person's name. We all know the classic advice that a person's name is the sweetest sound in any language. In the digital realm, this principle is ruthlessly enforced by the fact that names are almost always visibly displayed right in front of us. Misspelling a person's name in an email or a direct message is no longer just a minor slip of the tongue, it is a glaring visual indicator of carelessness and a lack of respect. It silently communicates to the recipient that you did not value them enough to take 2 seconds to verify the spelling that is likely sitting in their email address or profile header. Conversely, taking the time to use their name correctly and perhaps referencing something specific about them that you learned from a brief glance at their public profile creates an immediate surge of goodwill. Consider the vast ocean of cold outreach that floods our inboxes every single day. We are constantly bombarded by automated marketing pitches, generic networking requests, and copy-pasted solicitations. These messages fail spectacularly because they are entirely self-centered. They are the digital equivalent of a stranger walking up to you on the street and shouting their resume in your face. To stand out, your initial approach must completely flip this dynamic. The most successful digital communicators spend significantly more time researching than they do writing. When they reach out, they make the message entirely about the recipient. They highlight a specific piece of work the person recently published, they mention a shared interest, or they offer a piece of value with absolutely no strings attached. This approach aligns perfectly with the principle of taking a genuine interest in others. Let us look at a practical scenario. Suppose you want to connect with a busy industry leader whom you deeply admire. Sending a message that says, "I would love to pick your brain for an hour," creates an immediate burden on them. It is asking for their most valuable asset, their time, without offering anything in return. Instead, a masterful digital first impression might look like this. I recently listened to your interview on the future of our industry, and your point about adapting to new software completely changed how my team operates. I just wanted to send a quick note to express my gratitude for your insights. No need to reply, just wanted to say thank you. This message is incredibly powerful. It demands nothing. It offers sincere appreciation, and it proves that you are actually paying attention to them. More often than not, this lack of pressure is precisely what prompts a warm, willing response. Ultimately, your digital first impression should be designed to leave every person you interact with feeling just a little bit better than they did before they encountered your message. In a digital world that is often characterized by stress, urgency, and overwhelming demands, becoming a source of positivity, clarity, and genuine human warmth is a remarkable competitive advantage. By meticulously curating your digital presence and approaching every new interaction with a mindset of contribution rather than extraction, you build a foundation of trust that will support all your future endeavors. Point 3. How can you become a magnet for online trust? In a world where absolutely everyone is shouting into the digital void, the person who stops to truly listen becomes wildly attractive and deeply influential. We are currently living in an attention economy where the currency is engagement, yet the vast majority of people are entirely focused on generating attention for themselves rather than offering it to others. If you scroll through any social media feed, read the comments on a blog, or sit in on a crowded virtual meeting, you will witness a relentless cacophony of broadcasting. People are eager to share their achievements, voice their opinions, and promote their agendas. In this deafening environment, the simple, profound act of giving someone your undivided, authentic attention is the fastest and most reliable way to become a magnet for online trust. Dale Carnegie taught that to be interesting, one must first be interested. This principle translates beautifully to the digital space, but it requires a very specific set of modern skills. What does it actually mean to be a good listener when there is no voice to hear, only text to read, and images to view? Digital listening means moving beyond the superficial double tap or the mindless generic comment. It requires active, deliberate engagement with the content that others are putting out into the world. When someone shares an article they wrote, a proud milestone they achieved, or even a vulnerable struggle they are facing, they are essentially extending a bid for connection. They are asking the digital universe, does anyone see me? Does anyone care? When you step up to answer that question with a resounding yes, you build trust at an astonishing rate. However, your engagement must be incredibly authentic. Dropping a quick, great post or a fire emoji is the digital equivalent of an absent-minded nod. It does not prove that you listened, it merely proves that you scrolled past. To truly stand out, you must practice what we might call active digital validation. This means reading the entire article before you comment on it. It means pulling out a specific quote or a nuanced point that resonated with you and expanding upon it in your reply. When you say, I completely agree with your third point about restructuring team workflows, we tried something similar last year and it was a game changer. You are telling the author that their thoughts are valuable enough to warrant your time and deep reflection. That level of validation is intoxicatingly rare, and it creates a powerful bond of reciprocity. Furthermore, becoming a magnet for trust requires asking thoughtful, expansive questions. In a culture obsessed with making statements, asking a great question is a radical act of empathy. When engaging in a professional forum or a community group, the people who garner the most respect are rarely the ones who constantly center themselves as the absolute authority. Instead, they are the ones who facilitate meaningful conversations. They ask follow-up questions that allow others to shine and share their expertise. By shifting the digital spotlight away from yourself and onto the people around you, you paradoxically become the most valued person in the room. You become known as a connector, a catalyst for good ideas, and a safe harbor in a storm of self-promotion. This concept of deep listening is just as critical in private digital communications as it is in public forums. Think about the dynamics of an email thread or a direct messaging channel at work. It is remarkably easy to misread the emotional tone behind a colleague's message, especially when everyone is rushing to clear their notifications. A true digital listener pays attention to the unsaid elements. They notice when a normally enthusiastic team member starts sending unusually brief, clipped responses. They pick up on the subtle signs of burnout or frustration hidden in the phrasing of a project update. Instead of just replying to the logistical facts of the message, they take a moment to address the human behind it. Sending a private message that says, "Hey, I notice you've been carrying a massive workload lately with this new project. How are you holding up? Is there anything I can take off your plate?" demonstrates a level of emotional intelligence that builds bulletproof trust. We must also fiercely guard against the distractions that destroy our ability to listen during live digital interactions, such as video calls. It has become socially acceptable to multitask during virtual meetings, checking emails on another monitor, responding to text off camera, or simply letting our minds wander. But make no mistake, people can always tell when you are not fully present. Your eye contact drifts, your responses are slightly delayed, and your energy is flat. If you want to build exceptional trust, you must treat a video call with the exact same level of focused respect as an in-person meeting. Close the other tabs, look directly into the camera lens so the other person feels you making eye contact, and actively nod and respond to their points. Ultimately, trust is not something you can hack or automate. It is built drop by drop through consistent micro interactions that prove your reliability and your genuine care for others. In the digital age, your attention is your most precious resource. By choosing to spend it generously on understanding and validating the people around you, you instantly elevate yourself above the noise. You transform from just another username on a screen into a deeply respected, trusted confidant. People will naturally gravitate toward you, advocate for you, and collaborate with you, simply because you are one of the rare few who actually makes them feel heard in a deafening world. Point 4. The secret to winning arguments by never having them. Have you ever noticed that absolutely nobody has ever won a shouting match in the comment section of a social media post? The internet has effectively been designed as an outrage machine, where algorithms actively reward conflict, polarization, and hot-headed reactions because they generate the highest levels of engagement. In this highly combustible environment, Dale Carnegie's advice that the only way to get the best of an argument is to entirely avoid it becomes a vital superpower for preserving your peace of mind and your reputation. When we are hiding behind the physical safety of a keyboard and a screen, our natural inhibitions drop. We become brave, and sometimes we become incredibly reckless. The temptation to fire back at a critic, to definitively prove someone wrong with a barrage of facts, or to publicly humiliate a troll is incredibly alluring. Yet, indulging in this impulse is a guaranteed path to mutual destruction. To understand why online arguments are so futile, we must examine the deep psychological mechanisms at play. When a person states an opinion in a public digital space, their ego immediately becomes tied to that statement. If you publicly challenge them, even with the most logical, well-researched, and beautifully articulated counterargument, they do not read it as an invitation to learn. They read it as a direct threat to their identity and their social standing. Their psychological defenses instantly slam shut. The fight or flight response is triggered, and they will double down on their original stance regardless of the facts simply to save face in front of the digital audience. You cannot logic someone out of a position they did not logic themselves into, especially when there is an audience of strangers watching the exchange. Therefore, engaging in a public digital argument is a zero-sum game. If you lose the argument, you look foolish. If you win the argument by completely dismantling the other person's points, you have bruised their ego, bred deep resentment, and made a permanent enemy. You have won an empty intellectual victory at the cost of your influence and goodwill. So, how do we navigate disagreements when we are bound to encounter things that deeply frustrate or offend us online? The first and most crucial step is to enforce a mandatory pause. The speed of digital communication is our greatest enemy in moments of conflict. When you read an email or a comment that makes your blood boil, your immediate physiological reaction is to type a blistering response and hit send before you have time to cool down. You must train yourself to step away from the keyboard. Draft the angry response in a separate document if you must get it out of your system, but never, ever hit send in the heat of the moment. Wait 24 hours. In almost every case, the intense desire to argue will dissipate, revealing the futility of the conflict. When a disagreement is unavoidable, particularly in a professional setting, the strategy must shift from confrontation to radical empathy and de-escalation. Instead of telling someone they are wrong, you must begin by demonstrating respect for their perspective, no matter how flawed you believe it to be. You can use phrases like, "I can completely understand why you see it that way given the information at hand," or "That is a really interesting perspective, and it highlights a concern we definitely need to address." By validating their right to have an opinion, you immediately disarm their defensive posture. You are signaling that you are not an enemy combatant, but a collaborator seeking mutual understanding. A highly effective tactic for resolving digital conflict is to swiftly move the conversation offline or to a more personal medium. Text-based communication is entirely devoid of nuance, tone, and empathy. A disagreement that is spiraling out of control in a crowded Slack channel or a lengthy email chain can often be resolved in a 5-minute phone call or a one-on-one video chat. When you hear the warmth in someone's voice or see the genuine concern on their face, the hostility evaporates. You are reminded that you are dealing with a human being, not just an avatar generating text. Saying, "I think we might be talking past each other in this thread. Would you be open to a quick call to map this out together?" is a masterstroke of digital leadership. It stops the public performance and brings the focus back to problem solving. Furthermore, we must embrace the profound wisdom of letting little things go. Not every incorrect statement on the internet requires your correction. Not every slight requires your retaliation. You have a finite amount of emotional energy every day. and spending it on trying to police the opinions of strangers is a tragic waste of your potential. We must learn to scroll past the provocations. When dealing with genuine customer complaints or public criticism of your work, the approach remains rooted in grace. The silent audience is a crucial concept here. When a customer angrily complains on your public page, they are not the only one you are responding to. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of silent observers are watching how you handle the pressure. If you argue back, you look defensive and petty to everyone watching. If you respond with kindness, apologize for their frustration, and offer a proactive solution, you perform a masterclass in character. You may not win over the angry troll, but you will win the deep respect and loyalty of the entire silent audience who witnessed your grace under fire. Winning the argument is an illusion. Winning the respect of your community is the true victory. Point 5. Inspiring enthusiastic action through a cold glass screen. Getting someone to genuinely want to do something is the ultimate, most demanding test of digital leadership and influence. In a traditional office environment, a certain level of compliance is naturally enforced by physical proximity. A manager can walk the floor, observe who is working, and use their physical presence to drive momentum. However, in the modern landscape of remote work, freelance collaborations, and distributed teams, that physical leverage is completely gone. You cannot force people to engage, innovate, or collaborate passionately just by sending a demanding email with the subject line marked urgent. If you rely on authority and directives through a cold glass screen, you will only ever achieve the bare minimum of compliance. To create true momentum and inspire enthusiastic action, you must master the art of arousing in the other person an eager want. The fundamental law of human motivation is that people are driven by what they want, not by what you want. This sounds incredibly simple in theory, but it is routinely ignored in our daily digital communications. Take a close look at the average request sitting in your inbox right now. It is likely filled with sentences starting with, "I need," "we require," or "the company expects." These messages are entirely framed around the sender's anxieties and goals. When an employee receives a message saying, "I need this report finished by Friday because my boss is breathing down my neck," they feel no internal drive to complete the task excellently. They only feel the stress of a burdensome chore. To inspire action, you must completely re-engineer the framing of your request to align with the recipient's internal motivations, goals, and desires. How do we do this effectively through digital channels? It requires stepping into the other person's shoes and asking yourself, why would they actually want to do this? Let us say you are trying to convince a different department to adopt a new, slightly complex software system. If you email them a list of the software's features and a mandate to start using it, you will face massive resistance and endless delays. However, if you take the time to understand their daily pain points, your digital pitch transforms entirely. You send a thoughtful message saying, "I know your team has been incredibly frustrated by how much time is wasted manually entering data each week. We found a new system that automates that entire process, which should free up your team to focus on the creative strategy work I know you all prefer. Can I show you a quick demo of how it removes that bottleneck?" Suddenly, you are not giving them a chore. You are offering them a solution to their own problem. You have connected your goal system adoption with their desired, less tedious work. This principle is equally vital in the realm of digital marketing and sales. Consumers today are bombarded with thousands of digital ads and promotional emails, all screaming about how great a product is. The campaigns that actually convert are the ones that talk exclusively about the consumer. They don't sell features, they sell the better version of the consumer's life that the product unlocks. They paint a vivid picture of the relief, the joy, or the status that the user will experience. Influencing action online requires a relentless focus on the profound "what's in it for me?" question that is constantly playing in the background of everyone's mind. Furthermore, inspiring action requires a masterful use of positive reinforcement and the celebration of progress. In a virtual environment, people often feel like they are working in a vacuum. They send their completed tasks into the digital abyss and frequently hear nothing back unless something goes wrong. This lack of visibility is deeply demotivating. To combat this, digital leaders must become aggressive communicators of praise. When someone goes above and beyond, do not just send a private thanks. Elevate their contribution publicly. Highlighting a team member's specific, excellent work in a company-wide Slack channel or during a team video call provides a powerful surge of validation. It satisfies that deep human craving for importance and recognition. When praising digitally, specificity is the key to authenticity. A generic, great job team email feels hollow and automated. It holds no emotional weight. However, a message that says, "Sarah, the way you handled that difficult client question on yesterday's call was masterful. Your patience really de-escalated the situation and saved the account," is pure gold. It proves that you are actually paying attention to their specific efforts. When people feel seen and deeply appreciated for their hard work, their internal motivation skyrockets. They will eagerly tackle the next challenge because they know their efforts are not invisible. Finally, inspiring action often means giving people a reputation to live up to. If you want someone to improve their communication, don't write an email criticizing their current flaws. Instead, send a message that highlights their potential. "John, I have always admired your analytical skills and how deeply you understand our product. Because you have such a strong grasp on these details, I'd love for you to take the lead on communicating these updates to the client." By framing the request as an extension of their existing strengths, you empower them. You are not asking them to fix a weakness, you are asking them to step into their own greatness. When you interact with people through a screen, always speak to the best version of who they are, and they will almost always rise to meet your expectations. Point 6, delivering difficult feedback without sparking silent resentment. Nobody inherently enjoys being told they are wrong, and this universal truth is infinitely magnified in the digital realm where every piece of criticism comes with a permanent paper trail. Delivering difficult feedback is an unavoidable necessity in any professional or personal relationship, but doing so through a screen requires an extraordinary level of tact and emotional intelligence. When we critique someone face to face, our body language, our reassuring tone of voice, and our warm facial expressions can soften the blow. We can immediately gauge their reaction and adjust our delivery in real time to ensure the message is received constructively. In a text-based environment, all of those crucial emotional buffers are stripped away. A manager might type, "This section of the report is incorrect. Please rewrite it," intending it to be a simple, neutral instruction. However, the employee reading it in isolation might perceive it as a furious, devastating condemnation of their competence. Because written feedback lacks nuance, we must proactively engineer our messages to prevent the recipient's defensive walls from slamming shut. The most effective way to change behavior without causing offense or arousing resentment is to always begin with honest, specific appreciation. This is the modern application of the classic sandwich method, but it must be executed with absolute sincerity. Otherwise, it will be instantly recognized as a manipulative tactic. Before you point out what needs to be fixed, you must validate what the person has done well. By starting an email with, "Thank you so much for pulling this data together so quickly. The layout is incredibly clear and really helps visualize the trend," you are establishing a foundation of psychological safety. You are communicating that you recognize their effort and value their contribution, which makes them far more receptive to the course correction that follows. Once you have established positive intent, the transition into the criticism must be handled delicately. A critical rule of digital feedback is to avoid the word "but" whenever possible. If you say the layout is great, but the numbers in section 3 are wrong, the word "but" acts as a massive eraser, completely wiping away the praise that preceded it. the recipient only focuses on the failure. Instead, replace but with and, or frame the correction as a collaborative question. For example, the layout is incredibly clear, and if we can just tweak the data in Section 3 to align with the new quarterly projections, this report will be absolutely perfect to send to the client. Notice how this phrasing completely removes the sting of failure. It frames the feedback not as a personal reprimand, but as a shared puzzle that you are working to solve together. Another profoundly effective strategy for delivering feedback digitally is to call attention to your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. In a virtual workspace, leaders can easily appear distant and infallible, which makes their criticism feel heavy-handed. By intentionally demonstrating vulnerability, you level the playing field. If a team member misses a crucial deadline, starting the conversation by blasting them for their poor time management will only cause them to make excuses or withdraw. Instead, imagine opening a direct message with, "Hey team, I realize I might not have communicated the urgency of this timeline as clearly as I should have during our kickoff meeting. That's on me. Moving forward, how can we make sure we are all fully aligned on these milestones so we don't fall behind again?" By owning a piece of the fault, you instantly disarm their fear of being attacked. You create an environment where it is safe to admit mistakes, which is the absolute prerequisite for improvement. Furthermore, we must embrace the practice of calling attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Direct, blunt criticism in a digital format often feels like a public shaming, even if it is sent privately. If someone is consistently formatting a document incorrectly, returning it with a message saturated in red digital ink in a demand to follow the guidelines is demoralizing. Instead, try sending a brief message saying, "I just attached the final version of the document with a few formatting updates to match the client's current style guide. Take a look when you have a chance so we can use this as a template for the next round." You have corrected the mistake, provided the right way to do it, and completely protected their pride. It is also crucial to remember that some feedback should simply never be delivered via text or email. If the criticism is complex, deeply personal, or highly sensitive, typing it out is an act of cowardice that will almost certainly lead to a severe miscommunication. Significant feedback requires the highest bandwidth communication possible. Schedule a video call so you can look them in the eye, or pick up the phone so they can hear the genuine support in your voice. When you do deliver feedback well, make sure to praise their subsequent improvements extravagantly. When they fix the issue, send a message celebrating their adaptability. By protecting their ego, assuming positive intent, and framing corrections as collaborative growth, you can guide people toward excellence without ever sacrificing their loyalty or their enthusiasm. Point 7. The conclusion. We have journeyed through the intricate mechanics of navigating human relationships through screens, exploring how to build trust, inspire action, and communicate with profound empathy. As we bring these principles together, it is essential to step back and look at the broader picture of what true influence actually means in our heavily digitized society. Today, the concept of influence is frequently misunderstood. It is often conflated with viral fame, follower counts, and the ability to hack algorithms for maximum momentary attention. We are surrounded by a culture that celebrates the loud, the controversial, and the sensational. However, this type of digital attention is fleeting, hollow, and ultimately unfulfilling. True, lasting influence, the kind of influence that Dale Carnegie championed, is not measured by how many people view your profile, but by the depth of the trust, respect, and affection you cultivate in the hearts of the people you interact with every single day. Cultivating this kind of enduring influence is a long game. It is not achieved through a single clever tweet, a perfectly crafted email, or one successful virtual meeting. It is the compounding interest of 1,000 small, consistent acts of kindness, attention, and integrity. Every time you choose to pause and genuinely listen to a colleague's concern instead of rushing to speak, you deposit a coin into the bank of trust. Every time you publicly praise a peer's hard work, flawlessly spell their name, or gracefully de-escalate a tense online disagreement, you are building a resilient digital legacy. Over time, these micro-interactions weave together to form an unbreakable reputation. You become known not just for what you do, but for how you make people feel. And in a digital world that often feels cold and transactional, a person who consistently makes others feel valued and understood becomes utterly indispensable. To maintain this level of influence, we must remain vigilant against the subtle, dehumanizing effects of our technology. The screens we stare into are incredibly seductive. They pull us into a state of passive consumption and rapid-fire reaction. It is dangerously easy to slip into the habit of treating the people on the other side of our applications as mere data points, obstacles, or stepping stones to our own goals. We must constantly remind ourselves of the core truth that anchors this entire philosophy. Behind every single username, every email address, and every pixelated video feed is a living, breathing human being. They harbor the exact same fears of inadequacy, the exact same desires for recognition, and the exact same need for connection that you do. When you interact with the digital world with this profound realization at the forefront of your mind, your behavior naturally aligns with the highest ideals of leadership. As you move forward, I challenge you to view your digital devices not as shields to hide behind, but as powerful instruments for transmitting your authentic humanity. The internet desperately needs more warmth. It needs more people who are willing to be generous with their praise and stingy with their criticism. It needs leaders who prioritize psychological safety over rigid compliance. You have the power to change the emotional weather of your digital environment. A single message of unexpected appreciation sent to a struggling coworker can entirely alter the trajectory of their week. A thoughtful, empathetic response to an angry customer can restore their faith in your organization and in human decency. These actions do not require massive amounts of time or money. They simply require intentionality and a willing heart. In the end, the technology will continue to change. The platforms we use today will inevitably be replaced by newer, faster, and more immersive mediums tomorrow. Artificial intelligence will continue to automate our tasks and generate our content. But no matter how advanced our machines become, they will never be able to replicate the soul-stirring impact of genuine human empathy. The future belongs not to those who can merely code the algorithms, but to those who can connect deeply with the human beings using them. By applying these timeless, updated principles, by choosing to smile through your words, to listen with your full attention, to avoid toxic arguments, and to constantly elevate those around you, you will not just win friends and influence people. You will become a beacon of genuine connection, leaving a trail of light and lasting.
Thank you.